Guys, say hello to Brent. This is Bill. Back there is Braun.
There was 57,000 people there, and I almost pissed and shit myself as we took the stage.
I kind of went out of my body, on my mind, kind of playing. I'm like, what's going on right here? It's like a concert, and there's all these people. I'm playing. It's me. I'm playing. They're looking at me.
Get that energy that goes back and forth between you and the crowd. That's like the most untouchable thing, and that makes us really happy. And you can see it, the smiles on the people's faces. And that's awesome. That's what it's all about.
I enjoy life and I live it to the fullest.
Excellent. Good to see you in the digital flesh, Heather. Nice to meet you. Fantastic. Where are the snacks? You said there were snacks.
I already ate them.
Okay, well then that's the proof that there were snacks, obviously. What was it, that joke in The Simpsons? Like Lisa has this rock where it's like, this rock propels tigers. And it's like, how do you know it works? And it's like, well, you don't see any tigers around, do you? I'm glad that as soon as I mentioned The Simpsons, you didn't just immediately just say, okay, boomer, and then just jump off the screen.
No, I love The Simpsons. I grew up with them.
Hell yeah. Mastodon haven't been on The Simpsons yet, have they? They're definitely at that level, though.
No, but I did have Troy Simpsonized.
Excellent.
And I did a wood burning of some Simpsons quote. The purple is a fruit. That's a Simpsons thing.
This is trippy because I didn't even know that, and I started our call with a Simpsons reference. What the fuck?
Yeah.
That is absolutely trippy. Well, how does the day find you?
Good. I do have my Remission.
Very good.
Yeah, Mastodon is the only vinyl I have. I have one Baroness and a Gojira, but I got the Baroness because they did little acoustic sets at local vinyl shops. So I went, and he and Gina were doing a little acoustic set, and then the whole band was there, and they signed the vinyl if you bought it.
They're a good bunch. I've done a lot of if you go to Instagram, whatever, Baroness podcast, I've from way back in the day, I was doing this analysis on the sort of chromatic sequencing of, from first to second, and then a red, blue, right, and then yellow, green, then purple, all of everything that it meant in gold and gray. It's interesting that there's that beautiful parallel between Mastodon and Baroness of the elemental sequencing, chromatic sequencing, and they're definitely kindred bands for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud so I knew I was going to go see Baroness, and I decided I was going to wear one of the dresses I had made. I've made a bunch of different Mastodon dresses out of shirts, and just kind of patched them onto dresses. Well, there's the beard ad match shirt. It's like the skull with the beard on it. Well, a lot of people says it looks like John Baisley.
Absolutely.
I wore that and then went to go see them, and I ended up running into him outside the venue before the show, and I got a picture next to him in my dress that looks my Mastodon dress that looks like John. I didn't tell him that though.
We were talking about this, Danny and I think on a previous episode, that it's a true family of bands. It's Baroness, but then it autofills to Gojira and Mastodon, and then Meshuggah, and Tool and Mars Volta and Ghost as well, because they're very kindred with Ghost, and Primus, so it's fairly eclectic. Here's the thing: is as soon as we start talking about Remission, game over, man. We're just gonna end up talking about Remission. So I guess we're just sort of pre-show-tastic. Heather, that leads me quite organically into your Mastodon story. So while we have you in the pre-show, if you wanted to dive in, walk us through how you first encountered them, the scenario, the setting, and then the path from there. Go for it.
So I live in kind of a military town. Well, big military town. the radio stations, they don't play a very diverse mix of metal. It's a lot of Five Finger Death Punch and lots of very very popular metal bands, and it's okay. It's what I was into for a while. And Mastodon came on the air one day. It was Oblivion, and it was just like, this is so different. This is good. And I didn't know that there was all this music out there that wasn't on the radio. I was very naive. I was like, I love metal, but this is what's out there, so this is what I have to listen to. And after hearing Oblivion come on the radio so much, I was like, I love this so much. This is so different, and I need to find more. And like, I was like, wow, there's all these other albums out now, and I don't know. I really got lost in it. There was so much to find. There was the imagery and the artist, and I've had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and sort of what takes them beyond, and not in that sort of hyperbolic like fan way where people say this about bands, but what literally objectively takes them beyond just the band aspect is because they do incorporate the visuals so interwoven, and they have a lot to express and say and articulate about what they're singing about, and yet there are also several passages that are meant to be open for interpretation. So they really do prompt, and also because they lean into these timeless things that operate on an unconscious level, like elemental stuff and mythological stuff, that we end up leaning in closer to that fire, that like the ancestors did. We would just sort of lean in and be like, oh, we're being told a story. And even in their non-conceptual albums, stories are being told within each of within each of these songs. So it doesn't surprise me. You and I are on that same kindred space of that nature of Mastodon as being like this thing you can just dive endlessly into, and it rewards that kind of deep, close analysis. And
the metal that I was exposed to was fun, and it was real high energy, and I liked that, but there wasn't any deep meaning for me. There wasn't anything to connect to and feel close to. It was just kind of fun. So Mastodon was the first metal band that just kind of dug deep in your soul, and you're like, oh my god, this is incredible. I didn't know it could be so intellectual and still heavy and funky and fun, because they do have like their little jazzy moments, and you just kind of groove a little bit. Yeah. And that was missing in everything I've been listening to before.
Did you find when re-listening to, I'm assuming, don't want to assume it, but I guess I am assuming, that you gave a recent re-listen to Remission?
Of course.
In the very first song, there's Brent's weird, like Southern, just, incredibly.
That was another thing that got me into them. So I like metal, but I also love bluegrass.
That's nice.
So
Me too.
I really enjoy his little picking style, and I try and describe it to other people, and they're like, "Yeah, well, you pick on guitars, or they have that little bit that can sound like a banjo." I'm like, no, it sounds like playing banjo on the guitar. It's not the same. I cannot describe it.
When we gather for another Crack the Sky themed one, we'll talk about Divinations is one of the greatest strangely banjo-like guitar openings in heavy music. That's really lovely. Okay, well, let us continue this jaunt through Heather's history with Mastodon. So that was your first point of contact, was Oblivion, and we're talking. What year are we thinking? 2012?
No, it was much later than that.
Much later, okay.
So, yeah, our radio stations, they don't get a hold of stuff as soon as they should. Maybe 16.
Okay, nice. So just leading into the Emperor of Sand.
Yeah. So, it was definitely before Emperor of Sand came out. Because I remember when I started digging deep, like Hunter and Once More Around the Sun was already out, so I had like a whole nice array of music to dive into. And then I remember this was like the first album release that I knew about and was getting so excited about was Emperor of Sand. And I remember the day that I drove home and I got stuck in traffic, and I got to listen to the whole album beginning to end on my own.
Yeah. Favorite track off of Emperor? Go.
Oh, I have no favorites.
I know, it's impossible.
No favorites.
It's always a trick question.
This is so what makes Mastodon so, like, I know that I love them so much is I don't have like a favorite anything.
Yeah.
I don't have I have lots of things that I like. I don't have a favorite food. I don't have a favorite color. Like but Mastodon is my absolute favorite band. And I was like, when I knew that, I'm like, that's incredible because I don't have a favorite anything.
Well, I think if some of the guys, we're sort of teasing them, we're sort of having we're sort of courting each other on Instagram a bit. We'll see when or if they jump on the show. But if they are listening, Heather has basically created that exception. Just she doesn't have a favorite anything else.
Yeah,
for you guys, she's okay. Well, I do have a favorite band, and it's Mastodon. So
yeah,
that's kind of powerful. So I know you've met the dudes a bunch of times, probably. I met Bill way back in 2009.
I don't think I even posted it on Instagram, but my husband and I, we ran into Brent at the hotel bar before the show in Milwaukee, and we were just like hanging out and having beers with Brent for like 2 hours, and it was incredible.
Yeah, he seems like a very vibey, very eclectic dude. I don't know if that's entered the sort of common perception of the guy, especially in interviews. He seems, and I totally understand this, in most interviews, he's just kind of shut off, and I understand because he is a very eclectic dude, and if you just get him talking about that one basic bitch questions, he'll just disengage like anyone would. So I'd imagine you seem like a well-rounded, grounded person who has like eclectic interests, and so I'm sure he would light up at that, and that's kind of the vibe with myself as well, with across all the topic stuff that I do. But because especially Mastodon is this sort of intersection of so many things, imagery, themes, elements, mythology, personal stories, craziness, eclecticism, that it really can prompt this wide-ranging discussion. But Skinner was great to have on. Richie, awesome. It's become a tradition now that every episode I mention Medusa Wolf and wanting to speak with him, but he's notoriously very keeps to himself. So we send love to you, Alan, if you're listening to this while painting. And speaking of painting, do you have any sort of full-blown, apart from making dresses, creative outlets yourself, Heather?
Mastodon has taught me that I can paint.
Yes.
That knows about myself that I can paint. I can only sit down and recreate the images that I love from their albums. Mm-hmm. But that's been a lot of fun for me. I don't have the time or the skill level to sit down and create from my own imagination yet. Mm-hmm. So recreating what I love is good enough for me at the moment. Hey, Amanda.
Excellent. Hey, how are you?
Can you guys hear me?
We can. Yeah. Amazing.
Okay, cool.
Do you have the potential to turn your camera horizontally? If not, that's okay.
Let me.
Excellent. Perfect. That just makes it a bit easier in the edit later, that I can just do some fancy schmancy. So lovely Heather was just diving into sort of Mastodon catalyzed creativity angles, but because you've arrived here, and just as I said to Heather, wonderful to meet you. Both of you have such amazing energy on the Instagram. Meeting you in the digital flesh, I suppose. And yeah, lots of love to you both. Sending good energy from Australia. Big hugs.
Yes. Well, it's nice to, and Heather and I have talked before and stuff too, so it's nice to meet you digitally outside of
face to face.
Yes. Oh my gosh, till we can do it in person at some point.
In fact, you guys take it from here. This is a surprise attack. You guys are the hosts now. I'm just gonna leave.
Oh no!
I'm kidding.
We don't know what we're doing.
That's what I was. That's what I was saying. It's literally just hanging out, and Heather was mentioning just they met Brent before a gig and they just chatted, just all kinds of wide-ranging organic conversation. I think with some of mine, because I do love just wherever tangents go, that's what Richie Beckett and I did. We just had a film and traveling and food and just, but because we always do sort of loop back to Mastodon because of that sort of, I mean, you can see it in the Zoom background, like it is the Mastodon podcast. So we end up looping back to it anyway. So it's just that sort of, what do they have? It's like when you're climbing, you have that wire that just like, you know, you can just sort of feel free to just let go into any direction. But we were, how many more chapters do we have, Heather, in your Mastodon story? And then I want to get to Amanda's, and we can start with her like first point of contact and everything. What do you reckon, Heather?
Oh, we were at painting, right?
Painting, that's right.
Yeah. So I had this denim bodysuit, and I didn't know what else to do with it, so I decided to like do battle vest up top.
Yes.
And I started asking in battle vest groups, like, what do I do with the legs of this thing? I obviously can't just cover them in patches. I'm going to look like a walking padded quilt. So someone suggested painting on them, and I went, I'm going to paint every single Mastodon album cover on the legs of this thing. And it did not turn out bad at all. I was really surprised. I've never really painted before, but where there's a will, there's a way.
Cool.
I did it.
It's so
and it
lovely.
turned out pretty awesome. So, and then I ended up finishing it right before a meet and greet down in Atlanta. And I wore it feeling kind of silly, kind of like a little costumey, and a little bit like, are they going to think this is weird? Or is it like the day of, I'm driving down there and I'm thinking, is it not okay for me to have done this? Like, am I not allowed to paint their album covers on stuff? And I started getting a little worried about it. And I'm like, no, that's silly. They're fine. They don't care. They love their fans. They're so appreciative of everything, you know, that we do to show that we love them. But the kicker was, so we get up to do our photo with the group, and then we leave to go do like the meet and greet and see everybody and have like one-on-ones. And Troy's mother stopped me, and she's like, she had seen the photos of me as I was painting things, and she had to see it. And like, I can't tell you how sweet that was. And I get to hug Troy's mom and Troy's dad, and I'm like, ah.
That's very sweet. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, so it was worth it.
Well, Mama Sanders, you are welcome to the podcast. We have to have a whole episode where she just dishes on Troy as a baby, like has to, right?
Yes. We need that. That's the content everybody needs.
Very much so. So that is now officially in the ether. And I can imagine perhaps, you know, in that same sort of proud parent way, it's like, what's this I hear about your band having a podcast? You know, I think that might be nice. And we can embarrass them by just telling all these stories. You know, we've got this lovely group. Instagram just facilitates it. It would be nice to kind of bring, like, you know, maybe the Mastodon Mayhem guys, you know, and then just kind of start collecting these stories of how the band has like touched them and stuff, just so that, because I'm sure that the guys encounter that and they get to hear that, but often because they hear so many of those stories that maybe you forget them, you know, so then there'll just be this chronicle of them so that they can actually, you know, maybe sift through and just, you know, that kind of thing. But anyway, how do you feel, Heather? What we'll do is, because Amanda's jumped in, we'll shift to Amanda's zone, and then you can sort of leave the audience sort of just speculating. It's like to be continued, Heather's Mastodon story. Is that cool? Excellent. So Amanda, very much as we were speaking with Heather about, first point of contact with Mastodon. Take us, build a picture, paint a picture with your words. Go for it. First song, first moment. Go, go, go.
Yes. I have a full-on story. So I am a late adopter when it comes to Mastodon. So I didn't discover them until 2014. And how I discovered them was I was going to the Bonnaroo Music and Arts Festival. And every year I would, you know, go through the artist list and find the artists that I weren't familiar with. And then I'd listen to them. And if I liked them, I would check them out. So Mastodon was there that year. So, you know, this was before like Spotify was really big. I went to the library and I checked out Crack the Sky, Blood Mountain, and The Hunter. So yeah, so I'm like, that's a pretty solid starting point. And I still remember I put the CD put the CD in my car. It was Blood Mountain, and the intro to The Wolf is Loose. I was like, holy shit, like this is so cool. I was just hooked. And then I don't remember I don't remember if I went to Crack the Sky and then Hunter, but that was like what my basis was. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go and check these guys out at Bonnaroo. So I went with a group of friends, and they had a late night set. I believe it was like at 11:45 or something. And if I remember right, I hope I'm not making this up. I'll need to go back and look at the schedule. But I believe that we were seeing Kanye West. I know.
Cool. That's cool.
And
Eclectic.
I know, but that's what Bonnaroo is. It's like you can watch Kanye West and then go and watch Mastodon. So it was wild, but I believe it was Kanye, and I was like, does no one want to go see Mastodon? I'm going to go see Mastodon. And I just remember they were playing at like it was a tent. I mean, it was like a larger tent or whatever. And I stood in the back, and it was just like, whoa, like these guys are incredible. Like this is what I've been looking for musically, like as someone who's interested in heavy metal, and they just really fit the bill. Mm-hmm. So from there, I really got hooked, and I learned that was around the Once More Around the Sun time. So I learned that they had a new album out, and that was when I really started to unfold that this band had just like so many different facets and sides. I dug into the, what Crack the Sky was about, and, took in all the artwork and everything. And I remember I was like, all right, I need to see these guys again. Like, I just need to see them. So they were coming to Indiana, which I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. They were coming to the small city in Indiana that was about 3 hours away. And me and my ex, I was like, we're doing it. It's on a Saturday, like, let's go. So it was like a really small club. And I remember I was so surprised that I managed to get on the rail. So I was on Bill's side, which is my preferred side. And it was just like, it was insane. Like, it was so much fun. That was the tour that they did with Gojira and Kavelertak. So it was just a killer show. And I left that night with my first Mastodon. You can kind of see them behind me. I have 5 of them.
Oh, yeah?
They're very tiny. And there's also a Hunter mask, too. I just realized that's,
yes.
If you can see that up at the top. So it's all Mastodon-y behind me in an abstract way.
If we are on a phone, you can even take us digitally if you want later. So it's no worries.
I could, yes. That'll be I'll tour later. Yeah.
Okay.
So, that was like my first real like live experience, and it was just like so cool. And then from there, I think, so meeting the band, I don't know if we're going that route.
Please go.
Talking about her meet and greet. So
totally go for it.
Toured in 2015 again that was the tour they did with Clutch, and they came to another city that was just north of mine. So I went, and to Mary Heather's story about like, should I wear this? Is this ridiculous or not? I wore Once More Around the Sun leggings, and I had a tank top that had cartoon pictures on them that someone in the Mastodon Mayhem group was, and they weren't selling, they were putting them up on Redbubble. So they were just like little cartoon pictures of the band. And I was like, I'm just going to wear it, like, whatever. So, I'm like decked out, like in these ridiculously like bright pants and this tank top. And we get to the show really early, and I see Brett walk by, and I was just like, oh my God. So I said, Brett, do you love my outfit or what? And he was like, and very, like of every member to do that too, like that was the right one. He was like, I do love it. And he like took a picture of me. Really, very like Brentian experience, but he talked with me and my ex for a while, just about like everything and anything. He was wearing my ex was wearing a John Petrucci shirt, and he like slagged him. He's like, I don't like that guy at all. It was a very typical Brett meeting. So the show was amazing. It was so cool. And then afterwards, I met Bill for the first time, and I see Bill a lot, which is pretty cool. So I met Bill for the first time after the show, and he was like, yeah, I recognize you from the front row. And he was very gracious and was like, he's like, I tried to throw you some pics. Did you get them? And I was like, yes, I got the pics, and I got my drumsticks. I'm good. So that was like 7 years ago. And then like after that, that I was in the Mastodon Mayhem community, and that was around the time that I became an admin. So I've kind of like, there's a group of us that run it. I tend to be like the mouthy one. Like I'm the one that's like doing the posts, that like pins stuff, that cleans stuff up, that does the contests. And it's just kind of, I have so many stories about the band, but that's really like the genesis and how it really got started and everything. So,
well, first of all, I have to say on behalf of all the listeners, and there's fair likelihood that we have a few of the Mastodon Mayhem Facebook people listening.
Yeah.
Lots of love to you for your admin work. Admins are like chronically underthanked and underappreciated, so that's very kind. Amazing. That's rad, and very much lines up with, I just met Bill in 2009. He was just noodling away in front of was it Sydney, Sydney Uni, and they had a gig there. First and only time that I've seen them so far. Bunch of real life stuff has been happening. It was army stuff, whatever. Looking at seeing them again off of this tour would be so good. Hopefully they come to Australia. I don't know. Are they planning on coming to Australia? I don't know.
I don't know. They have like a one-off gig in Japan, but I know that that's still like far from Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
So
it's just a big ask for people to come here. You get to that point where you just appreciate the human beings who are making the work and all of their multifaceted. So then, as a follow-on, what they make is something you appreciate because you actually love them within that context of you're on that community side, the creative side. But all of us had this experience of being able to combine all those. Is there an actual more wholesome and welcoming community in metal? I just don't think so.
No,
it's just so nice. And we're not
no.
We're not
it just really enhances the fun and enjoyment of everything, having such an amazing group of people to share it with.
Yeah, and I think too, I've said this before in the group, I do feel like the fans are a reflection of the band themselves. And I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but they are genuinely good people. And I can think of so many times that they've not only gone out of their way for me, but for other people too. They're just really good, solid human that just happen to be these amazing artists. And I feel like the community really is a reflection of them, for sure.
Totally. It's that idea that getting away from that consumer brain, because the consumer brain really just puts you on the outside and has you kind of with that body language of expectation and judgment and all of that. But the thing is, because they sense that level of kinship with their community, that makes them feel when we do take risks and do different things, that we know we have that net where people will support us. And that's why they put out quality stuff. So then you avoid that thing which happens in some communities where the community is trying to defend lackluster art, but they actually are quality human beings, quality art, and I think both of those marry really nicely together. Let us continue the Amanda journey. So that's 2014-ish. And how many times have you seen them?
Oh, gosh. So I've seen them, I think, about 15 times. I'm really lucky. I think the turning point for me, so the Clutch show was in 2015. And then in 2016, I actually flew to Ireland to see them.
Nicely done.
My now girlfriend lives in Scotland, and it was a huge risk taking trip, because I was I'm going to go visit her and we're going to go to Ireland to see Mastodon together. And it ended up, it was amazing. And that was one of the first times that I felt a true sense of community there, because Troy's brother Darren is pretty active in our Facebook group, and he and I had shared a picture because we were wearing all of, me and Sharon is her name, we were wearing matching outfits. By that time my leggings collection had multiplied, so I had Blood Mountain leggings as well. So we were we're just gonna wear these outfits or whatever. And I posted a picture, and Darren was like, "What shows are you going to?" And I'm like, "We're going to be at both Irish shows." So in Belfast, he gave me a drink, and he gave us after show passes to just kind of hang around, which was really cool. And that was in Belfast, and that was when I first met Braun. And I remember he came outside. We were just kind of hanging around outside, because you can drink outside in Ireland. And Braun came outside and was like, "Amanda from Ohio, right?" And I was like, "Oh, you know who I am?" And so I'm guessing that someone was saying like, oh, Amanda's here or whatever. So I got to talk to him for a really long time and just to kind of share a really cool story that because we talked about anything and everything from like what he watches on the tour bus and, you know, songs. And I asked him, I was like, I freaking love Asleep in the Deep. Like, what are our chances of hearing that live? And this was in 2016. And he was like, I don't know. He's like, that song is so hard to play and sing. He's like, I just don't know if we'll ever be able to do it. And then, you know, they did it at the Adult Swim thing. And I think they did it at the Georgia Aquarium, if I'm remembering right, too. Yeah. So, and I always think about that because I remember he was like, I don't know, like it's really hard to play and sing. And it's like, I'm like a proud parent. Like, look at him now. He's singing and playing. I know. You know, like, yeah, look at him. He's so amazing. Yeah. So that was cool. And then that was all at the Belfast show. And then in Dublin, that was when I met Troy for the first time. The elusive Troy, he was just coming out and he had actually apologized for missing me the day before. And I was like, it's totally fine. Like, this is just like a bonus, whatever. So, you know, just got to talk to him and everything. And then those were like, just really, I think those made me realize that like, because Bill's in the Facebook group too, like that, I'm like, they do know, like have an awareness of who I am and who like the other big fans are, and it just felt like, you know, like I'm like that's pretty cool. So like I've had the opportunity to meet them all a lot since then. Something
that the band catalyzed, like with Heather, it's that creativity and it's this thing of like making those connections pre-show and stuff or post-show, and then for you it was this I like how you had that like proud mother moment where it's like, okay, well then you sort of maybe see yourself as like this kind of parental or even like kindred like sort of guidance kind of, you know, I guess, yeah, that's why you're an admin, you know, administrative, and it's facilitating that, you know, that passion that people have. But Danny has arrived. How are you, buddy? Let's see if we can hear you.
Good.
Yeah, there he is. We got audio. He is a muso after all. You wouldn't be worth much if you couldn't sort out your fucking audio. All right? Yeah, you wouldn't be worth much at all. How does the day find you, Danny?
Not bad. How are you guys?
Well, first of all, Danny it's what is it, like 1 a.m. there? He's
12.
12. Okay. Well, we appreciate
or just before.
We appreciate making the gesture, man. It's because of this time zone thing, and we have some, you know, we're bringing on. But anyway, Danny, Heather, Danny, Amanda, Danny, Amanda.
Hey, how are you?
Hello. Good.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Good. Thank you. I think me and Heather have been Instagram friends for quite a while now, but never actually spoken.
There you go.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
If anything, the show exists literally just to accommodate these, like, okay, making that jump from Instagram and like, hey, you're a human being. Hello. Yeah. You know?
You're real people.
That's right. Mastodon podcast. A podcast for real people.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. Well, so yeah, they were just we just went through a bit of because you know you got to give a bit of your Mastodon ID on previous recordings, Danny, and we used the sort of pre-show to Heather took us through her journey. Maybe you can listen back to it later.
Yeah, we
just sort of, but now that everyone's here, Amanda, what are we here to talk about?
Remission 20th anniversary.
In the edits, that is when I immediately cut to Crasher Destroyer. Just okay, nice. Okay, this album.
Out of the gate.
Okay, so if it's all right, we'll do. Okay, Danny's doing his vape thing. Amazing. Heather, we'll circle back. We'll keep going around. Heather, you and Remission, go. Anything. Take any angle, song, lyrics, history, what it means to me.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Well, of course, the art. I love the art. I'm always going to love. That's like my first go-to with a lot of Mastodon stuff is the art. Like a book. I pick books off of the cover. That pulls me in first. So definitely the artwork.
I take it. There you go.
Yeah. So that was
Speaking
one
of
of, I
which-
think that was the second album cover that I
Beautiful.
painted on my battle suit. So
Mm.
I had a lot of fun with that one. That one was very difficult, getting the eye just right. I think he mentioned in the podcast he did with you, getting the eye, like that was very important.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was
Aw.
that also was really important for me, was getting the eye just right.
Your battle jackets and stuff are fucking awesome. Like,
Thank
well
you.
done. You do such a great job.
Shouts out. No, I dig that absolutely. So Amanda, you in Remission, whatever.
Yes. Yeah, so I mentioned before, found out about Mastodon in 2014, and Remission was one that I went to after I had seen them at Bonnaroo, and I remember listening and being like, this is like a completely different band, like this is, it's distinctly Mastodon, like thinking about like, where strides the behemoth, like the drums like are very, like you would listen to the drums and be like, yeah, that's Rob Taylor kind of thing. But I remember just being like, okay, so this is the genesis, this is where it all started. I've like, if I'm to pick favorites, it changes a lot, but I have a soft spot for Old Nessie. Not sure if it's because my heart is in Scotland, but it's just, there's just something so beautiful and so brutal about that song and the journey that it takes. I think it's great. But it's an awesome workout album front to finish. So if you have like lifted heavy weights to Remission, do it.
I dig it. Absolutely. Danny, you in Remission, any direction, go. We'll circle back.
It was one I worked back to also. I went from Blood Mountain backwards. And even now, every time I hear it, it's hard to believe that it's the same band they are today. And it was even when Blood Mountain was the pinnacle of what they'd done. But I don't know, it's monstrous, isn't it? It's just completely relentless all the way through. The energy, the aggression. And exactly as Amanda says, if you want to go and pump some iron, that's definitely a good one to go with. For sure.
That's amazing, dude. I think, and again, feel free. We're just hanging out. Jump in, interrupt. It's all good. It's so funny. For a long while, first of all, I resonate and connect with everything you guys have expressed about the record so far. But for a long while, I would actually, for such a heavy album, I would go to Trilobite a whole bunch, just to kind of zen out and just like do, like this like this one little calm little eye of the storm of the record. But what I was saying to Heather before was right off the gate, it's something that I hadn't noticed, I guess, as fully, because I just wanted to do that anniversary re-listen, was Brent's presence in like Crusher Destroyer, like just those flourishes that he does. And don't be lazy in the edit, Albert. Cut to it now. Okay, yeah, that's what I mean. This beautiful southern little chicken picking kind of stuff at the end of these monstrous riffs, and
it's really like rock and roll, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, but as you were saying, Amanda, just about that genesis, and like if the first song and the first lyrics and the first album kind of were any indicator of what was to come, it definitely accomplishes that, Crusher Destroyer. And I love Brent's story about Crusher Destroyer, that like there was a band called Crusher Destroyer and then they decided to name their song, and he like very mischievously says like, yeah, and because we named our song that, now they're not as like, things fell apart for them, because now Crusher Destroyer is just mostly known as a Mastodon song. So such a little goblin that guy is.
They are an excellent band for starting off an album. Like, like Crusher Destroyer, Blood and Thunder, The Wolf is Loose. It's just like,
and Tread Lightly is such a good live opener. We're not talking about Once More Around the Sun, but I always thought that was such a, like, that build. Oh yeah, they have a knack for great openers, that's for sure.
They do. Actually, we need to have a dedicated episode about that, Danny. No
worries.
This place is like, if this was the 80s, first of all, it would be on walkie-talkies, I guess. But if we were all in the same town, then the Mastodon podcast would be, you had that friend who just had their shed, but their shed was always open. You could just wander in, hang out in their garage, have beers, whatever. And that whole vibe. But I want to go through and I just want to see, like, almost like a psychologist, like, when I show you this, what does this make you think of?
What kind of podcast is this? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
know. No, it's okay. Well, no, because the band also has these links to psychology and symbolism and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, we talked about Crusher Destroyer. Any more riffs on Crusher Destroyer? We're going to go to March of the Fire Ants now, unless there's any more Crusher Destroyer. Oh, one thing. Ariana Richards, who plays Lex in Jurassic Park, we're trying to get her on the Jurassic podcast stuff that we do on the Topic Podcast Network. She screams. She's like the first, and says Timmy, like way back in the mix. And so I think, I don't know, she should have gotten some credit. So I think there might be a legal thing there.
I know. Should ask her about it.
She's really cool. She's like a mom now and just a rad human being.
Cool.
Guys, March of the Fire Ants. For me, when I heard it and I saw that title, I was like, what is this, Fantasia? Was this like one of the sequences from that Disney movie? It's like March of the Fire Ants, such an evocative, like a composer like Bach would name one of his compositions March of the Fire Ants. But
Like the Bumblebee and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So what are the Fire Ants vibes from us? What are we thinking?
It's a great live song. I think they last played that in 2018. And if I remember right, I have like an encyclopedic knowledge of like Mastodon set list, but I'm pretty sure that was or maybe it was 2017. I'm not sure, but it's really good live. And that's another one that kind of takes you on that journey. Like it's that boom, 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 it starts off, but it does have that really, I don't want to say pretty middle, but it does get, it's got that, it's lovely. It just kind of like just showcases like their ability to both be brutal and melodic, but like not lose edge. Yeah.
Heather, Fire Ants, go.
There's not a whole lot of songs that like really make me feel like heavy and yes. March of the Fire Ants definitely one of. Yes, if I'm not even in the mood, it's gonna get me in the mood.
Fuck yeah.
It's a good pop-up song, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If I ever get arrested, Danny, I want to be known as that guy who's like, he was just beating this person up to this song, like he was timing every punch to each drum fall. I want that to be in the police report. It's like, and he was ranting. He's like, make sure you know that I killed this person to March of the Fire Ants. I'm kidding.
I think too, like it's because I did, kind of go back and like look at lyrics just like at a very high level and stuff. And that's another thing, like it's just cool to also go back and just see how much they've matured from a songwriting perspective. Like, I have some things to say about some of the songs, but some of them, like, I couldn't tell you what Trampled Underhoof is about. Like, it's got like, 10 words in it. I'm being facetious, but like March of the Fire Ants, it almost like when you look at the lyrics for that one, it almost feels like it's like you're working without recognition, which I think is sort of like what the ants imply, like all in a row. I don't know, just kind of my thought about it. That's
what's perfect about not only different people's interpretations, but then you revisit it years later, you can have a different interpretation. I agree. Just so that, thank you, Amanda. I do want to do this, which is for Crusher Destroyer, all I'll mention is, so it's lessen the honoring instinct of animal pressure, no blame on the red bull, throw fury at him. So all of them very early on, again, in tune with the idea of things like Trilobite evokes something primeval, Precambrian just coming into being, which is that self-awareness that Bran had, that this is an early record for them. So the lyrics are all very abstract, unformed, whereas later in stuff like Hushed and Grim, it's extremely nuanced and like human and evolved and matured. So, but, lots of imagery here of, blood running, and aim, gorge, and win. I just fell more in love, which is basically that need to be. That's how like bands just don't, and Danny would know this, like bands, they fall out because they don't maintain that furious like pace, and so it's almost like a mantra unto themselves to kind of keep themselves on track and aiming and focusing and gorging and winning. So it's like they've kind of given themselves that beautiful yeah. And then burning gravestone engraved, I think I was doing a pun in our chat about that. It's like we've cemented our recording date engraved, you know.
They're always quite triumphant, I find, with Mastodon. Like,
Yeah.
even when they're like lyrics and stuff you know, dealing with difficult subjects, there's always a sense of triumph there. There's always something that you can cling on to, and I think that straight out of the gate is one of those moments for sure.
Dig
That's
it.
a good point.
One of the most evocatively named tracks, Where Strides the Behemoth. Once again, with this sense that you saw Paul talk about it in the recent Heaviest interview, where they were talking about a band that, and he confirmed this to me in private messages. Paul was like, yeah, I specifically wanted to put the guys out there with the sense that they were iconoclastic and that the art evoked this kind of classicism and almost something you would come across in like a library, like scholarly metal, academic metal, whatever. And then this obviously all feeds into the Moby Dick based, you know, sequel to this one, but they have an awareness that like they, you know, the priest stands to our right, a princess is mine. I once said this about Baroness's lyrics too. It's like you just extract that, and if you presented that in poetry class, like the teacher would be like, interesting, what like 18th century, you know, Dutch poet wrote this, you know?
Yeah.
And so the horizon seems so far away. Again, the band being like, we're working hard, but sometimes, man, it can feel like, who knows what else, like who knows how many tours, who knows how many gigs we still have to do with like 5 people attending, you know. But by this time, I think they really took things off. But anyway, anyone with anything like that they wanted to say about Where Strides the Behemoth?
They used to, at least on a lot of their UK tours, they would play that, and then literally on the last note of Where Strides the Behemoth, they would go into March of the Fire Ants seamlessly.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Someone just shared that video in the Mastodon group, and I was like, now I want to hear this combo live. It's so, It's kind of like now they do Blade Catcher into Black Tongue. So that's like the modern version of that.
Yeah. Tying a song to another one.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think too, like that, I mentioned that one, that song sounds distinctly Braun. Like I remember like being at the gym, because I do listen to this album a lot when I'm working out, and I just remember being like that whole, I think it's just bass and drums, like where it's just like Braun like filling and filling and filling. I'm like, this guy's like a jazz drummer in a metal band, but like it's working, and it sounds
primal.
very. What's that? Yeah.
Yeah, very primal. Mastodon gave permission to metal to feel okay to be eclectic and iconoclastic and weird, and then to sort of assemble your identity from there. And I love that. I love that idea of this coalescence into this thing, which now you have so many albums, so many bands rather, that now have taken Mastodon as their own, you know, inspiration, like Ancients and like a whole bunch of other bands. That's rad. Heather, any riffs on Behemoth? What do you reckon?
No, I'm going to be probably the quiet one of the group.
I know. And don't worry.
Have a lot of maybe not so much technical knowledge or
totes.
knowledge.
But I think it's because it's like similar to how it's similar to how in like school, it's like you always make sure that everyone feels included. What I dig from this one is I love the thing you said, Danny, about it leading into March of the Fire Ants, but I love A Princess Is Mine is an interesting lyric because it makes me think of Mario. Like your princess is in another castle, like they were like, so much of their early albums have to do with seeking and finding and winning. It's so good.
And if anything, easy.
And it not being easy. And so if any I'm sure a bunch of people listening have bands of their own. Like
Mario is hard.
Mario is hard, exactly. And when the princess is in another castle, you can't give up. You have to keep going. You know. But my takeaway from that is look how honest, and I think Amanda, Heather, you'd agree with this. Look how honest they were super early on and raw even about where they're at. They're like, we're aware that this is like really tough to break through, and we're actually gonna be self-aware about it and like include that in our lyrics. And I, once again, not because my fiance does this like relationship advice stuff or whatever, but I always find ways to tie things in. So basically, if you contrive and pretend, like steam will run out immediately in a relationship, in an artistic endeavor. If you're not really there, then literally like it just fumes, like it just runs out. If you're wearing a mask and like pretending, even if the mask like matches you like 99%, if it's not who you really are, it'll get itchy and you want to take it off and you want to. So the very fact that as young as they were, I mean, we're talking fucking, like, you see some of those ragamuffins, like early Mastodon interviews are so immature. They're like Brent like sticking things up his nose, and it's just Workhorse Chronicles era Mastodon is fucking hilarious. But even back then they were like, they are still like that. But even back then they had that awareness of like, when it comes to making the art itself, it's like, that's how I think they've had their fuel, is because when it's who you really are, then there's no effort, there's no contrivance. And so interesting, again, taking these opportunities to have like close viewings of, that's what I took away at least. So I have the lyrics in front of me here as well. All right, so Workhorse. Which is obviously an allusion in some ways to the cover. Man, like, I think I'm a little bit like Heather, where it's just like, there's just lots of love for the whole album, obviously. But work for you and never get tired, roll them up and it's time to go, we'll be back before it's too long, which is maybe allusion to like touring or whatever. Yeah, I love Workhorse.
Yeah, it almost like, I felt like it was when I was looking at the lyrics, and I think this is the one where, yeah, Brent says it's about work and work fucking sucks, right? Yeah. Like, yeah, it has to be about, what else would it be? But it's very much like the lyrics like are very much about like this soul sucking work with like maybe no reward, like, you know, that's kind of what you glean from it. I do have like, I just wrote down like a couple of things as I was listening to it today, and that was like one of the things that I thought of. But yeah, and it's well placed on the album too, I think, as well. Like, it's just an interesting choice after Behemoth and everything too.
But also, we'll be back before it's too long. Once again, it's likely that at this time they probably didn't, like, they probably had side jobs, or maybe. And that whole thing of Back Before Too Long, it's like Tame Impala here in Australia, they have a song like Back and Forth, what's it for, like one of their lyrics. And then, so that idea of just making a dedicated song to like, work sucks. And I love the last lyric is like burning hell. It's like, I just hate it. And you hear any musician who's like, the reason why I'm a musician is I could not physically stand doing anything else. And yeah, you know, there you go.
There's a band in my town. Well, they've split up, long since split up now, but they were one of the bands that performed at the first ever gig I went to, and that they were called Hate Work. And they were interviewed by a local paper, and they were like, "Where did you get the name from?" And the drummer was like, "Well, we just fucking hate work, so."
Hate work. I love that. That's rad. Okay, well, shout out to Hate Work.
Yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah, fuck yeah. So, Old Nessie. Let's talk about that. I mean, again, I love that what you mentioned about Scotland. Okay, so Old Nessie, for the people who don't know, is a reference to Loch Ness Monster, I believe.
Yeah.
But
the lyrics don't really, like, I'm like, is it really, are the lyrics about Old Nessie, or is it one of those situations where, you know, they just said, we're going to call a song Old Nessie, you know, like, I don't know. I would pose that to you guys because I really don't know. Well,
this is exactly where the podcast exists.
Yeah, this is the best forum for that.
Yeah, for me, Old Nessie, especially because of it's nomenclature through texture. It's like the feeling the song gives evokes like a leviathanic or like mysterious, deep, huge, So I think they do mention that the lyrics and titles come last. So the music comes first, and then they just sort of like, I guess you could call it this because it sounds like this. But
it's almost a love song if you read the lyrics.
Can I share an embarrassing old Nessie story?
Yes.
Before I made the connection of that it was, the Loch Ness Monster, I thought it was just about like an old lady. Like an old, just like, oh, Nessie, right?
Great.
The Miss My Sweet Love part, old Nessie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But
it does, oops, I'm sorry.
No, go for it. Go for it, Amanda.
No, I'm glad that you said that about like, it has that kind of like, I was trying to think of how to articulate it, but it does have that sort of almost like water feel to it, like in terms of how it flows. And I'm thinking about when that slower part comes back after those brutal verses, I've always thought that it felt very much like, kind of oceanic or something like that. And then I start to think, like, I wonder if this was like the precursor, because Remission is very much fire, core, lava. That's what I think of. And then, Leviathan's obviously water. Yeah. And then, I could go on and on, but it just sort of seems like it sort of lends to that really well. Like, I feel like that's a good, like, link into where that album goes. So, I'm glad that you called that out, because I always think, I'm like, it does have that kind of like the swell of the water. Like, I always felt like Sea Beast. Like, I could just picture being on, like, the hull of a ship looking out at the you that kind of
course.
Gives me a similar experience.
As you said, swelling.
Shouted at by Captain Ahab.
That's right. You have that absolutely right about, and once again, in a couple of years we'll gather and talk about, Leviathan's 20th. Yeah, geez. But But with this one, there was the Georgia Aquarium performance where Troy was mentioning, he's like, we've always had this connection to, he said through like Leviathan, I was like, through our music, but also through our Leviathan record. But I also think this song, as you said, precursor, but they do have an oceanic association. And even in like the promos for like Emperor of Sand or whatever, like Troy's out on, I think it was for Hush and Grim.
In a jacuzzi or something.
Yeah, so he's in a jacuzzi, and then so Troy, again, being this, I guess, very Ahab energy kind of guy with his beard and everything.
People think I'm Captain Ahab or something.
You think you're Ahab, but you're not. You're Ishmael, and you're just a shipmate, and I own this fucking ship.
So maybe he's like an ocean wizard or something. But I just think one thing with Mastodon is that they evoke a sense of wonder and evoke a sense of shared humanity, and we literally all crawled out of the ocean, So it's interesting that they would have this aquatic kind of quality. But you're right. This is Flame, but the thing is, though, with I don't know if I've shared this on the episode, but on the Mastodon Reddit, where I'm a moderator, I posted the sequencing elemental of the albums, and sure enough, found in Ever Reliable Joseph Campbell, who I discovered through Mastodon, Hero of the Gods, Crossing of the Threshold, The Belly of the Whale. There's a passage.
Always a hero.
That's right. There's a passage that actually described this sequence of how the elements came into being. It's like, well, fire, the universe was born, flame, the Big Bang, and then the thing that cooled the fire was the water, right? And then when you mix those two together, that molten plus the water, it created earth, and that's why there's this sequence of fire, water, earth for Blood Mountain, and then because you climb that mountain, and then the thing that's further above the mountain is the ether. And then my little sneaky thing that is still not confirmed, but is that because you can't have flame without oxygen, that call of the Mastodon, because call evokes air expulsion, and because the cover of Call of the Mountain has this air imagery, that it is the unofficial air album, because flame needs oxygen.
Yeah, it's got like the traditional, like the wind gods blowing either side.
That's right.
I remember.
Paul hasn't confirmed it though, and he's so coy because I know that I'm right. But he's been nice. He like when I've shared like nomenclature observations or symbolic stuff, he's been like, yeah, this one, graphical element, I took this from this like Dutch painting in the 1700s, and that's why on the front cover of Remission you see these things that look like notes and they look like treble clefs or whatever. And it's like, well, so yeah, again, he's a fiend for those details, and that is also part of why this podcast actually has any merit in existing, because it gives all those tidbits to analyze. Amanda, festival head, Burning Man.
Burning Man.
Burning Man.
Another
Ferocious.
great workout song. Yeah, so ferocious. And this is one, it's interesting because I think the lyrics of this one evoke like, it's more of like the coals, the flames to ashes. So it's kind of also like sticking with, of course, the fire theme, but it's like, again, like I just feel it's like, again, a genesis of, moving forward with the other elements. And I don't know, like from a lyrics perspective, I don't know if it's like an homage to the Burning Man festival. I don't know. I feel like they evoke, between like the imagery with like the coals and everything. I do feel like it's evoking wanting to be like swept away from something, which is interesting because I do feel like a lot of the themes and the lyrics on the album deal with like, facing the situations that you're in and what you're going to do about it. So it kind of like, I don't know, it fits with some of the theme of the other songs. So
It's like a purification through fire or something.
Trial by fire. Literally the first album for any band is a trial by fire. Once again, self-awareness in how they chose it elementally. Again, I don't know if they thought 20 years later, it's like, the kind of direction we're going with this, I don't know, might merit some kind of quasi-scholarly analysis 20 years later.
It would be amazing for like...
Maybe a podcast. That's right.
It'd be amazing for like Bron to listen to this and be like, they're just words that we put together.
They're just words. I fully
we
like
needed something.
Literally everything. I've done like almost 400 podcasts. Every one of them has this disclaimer that it's like, hey, even if it was like the furthest thing from the creator's intent, it's like I myself enjoyed that kind of free associating symbolic analysis process. Never claiming any like official whatever. It's just interesting, and then it adds like, I guess, personal layers of meaning to it. But for me, Burning Man is so I've actually, have anyone else here walked on coals? Like actually ran across?
No.
No.
You to do it, you have to be in a certain space, like a certain mental space. You actually can't do it if you're not in that absolute dedicated, committed to, because you're fucking walking on coals. But
I'd like to think I could do it. I've sat down and thought, I think I could do this.
I think you could.
But I've never had the opportunity, so maybe
there you
someday.
go. That's amazing. Also, brackets, I want to welcome our canine friend who is now cameoing on the podcast. Hello.
Hi.
Little pooch.
Little pooch.
Rude to me.
That's adorable. So Trainwreck. I fucking love Trainwreck. The atmospheric beginning is just, again, it's like, again, that self-awareness. I think Danny would speak to this. When you're sequencing an album, it's like, when does the audience need a break? And perfectly nailed it. I think.
That is one thing that we are currently struggling with in my band. We've got like 9 songs or something for our album, and there's an order and there's a theme, but it's like it never really works in the set list there. So would it work on an album? It's so difficult just to put songs into an order that you're comfortable with, and there's 3 of us in the band, so it's like I don't really like it there, but Kieran does, and
there you go. It's a thing.
So where else would they have put this song?
Yeah, it is well placed, and it's almost like a breather while still being like very heavy. But you're right, it is kind of like, okay, like it's a good placement between Burning Man and then Trampled, which we'll get to shortly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Let's stop kicking them in the ass for 5 minutes and give them a breather.
We'll let them breathe.
Just
stretch a little.
Like, dude, my fucking, I'm bleeding here, dude. Just like stop like walloping me with riffs, you know.
But it's like it's
your break between sets in the gym.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I might get more water here or something like that. But it is like, I feel like it's like I don't know, it's almost like an art form to figure out like the right album order. And then even then when you do live shows, like I always think about that again, you know, with Mastodon and everything, like with the recent tour, and like they've done such a good job at placing things where they should be placed. Like, you know, like we're not going to close with Skeleton of Splendor, but you know, we'll do Gigantium and then get them out of here with Blood and Thunder, or Mother Puncher, Blood and Thunder. So, you know, but it's a lot of thought, I'm sure.
I'm sure, again, that sense of universally across every aspect. Once again, there are so many bands. There's a guy, his name is Guy Contact. He's this Australian guy, and he makes what I like to call like PS2 demo disc music. It's just whenever you just are in like a certain space, you listen to it. But he deliberately just like, you know, when you were in like a secondhand CD store and you would just see these like completely ridiculously obscure CDs, like he has chosen that as his aesthetic, and it's like, that's cool. Like, that was like almost like a choice on a whim. There was no kind of conscious too much like thinking about like, this is what I meant by wanting to include this. Whereas with Mastodon, there's this intentionality, and in fact, I believe intention is one of their like most recurring words. Speaking of words, this also feels like Mastodon Book Club. It's very scholarly. It's like, oh yes, masterclass lecture series in Mastodon analysis. This is a lyric I think Heather's going to relate to. All questions exhaust me, which is a great.
Yeah. If you have kids, yeah.
If you have kids,
you've been exhausted by questions.
That's great. Into this world is one I relate to. It's like, oh man, yeah, definitely. For all this land I've seen its worth, helping for all time's sake, helping all for time's sake. Ooh, I also love when people switch like one word out and it immediately changes the meaning. You know, that's cool. And going back to that idea of them being like kind of very generously giving of themselves as like creators to like everything they do. Digging it. All right. We have arrived at Trample Underhoof. And I just love that first lyric. Birth.
Yeah.
Excellent. Trampled in the Hoof destroys me. Oh man, I have so many stories. Actually, because I go to this one a lot. But Danny, any Trampled stories?
I'm just looking at the lyrics again now. So
Really, we're all Heathers deep down. Like we just listen to this shit. We don't really think too much about it. We just fucking love it. But you know, why not?
It's my escape from thinking and worrying about things. Just listen and enjoy.
Yeah. So I make this kind of pattern art stuff. Right, the asymmetrical stuff based on morphogenesis, which is this thing that happens in nature, literally means like how patterns are created. It's like the root words, like Greek words,
I have
whatever.
Something I'd like to share with you about that, by the way. I have done a lot of designs that are the exact opposite of that. They are exact mirror images And I've got like
Wow.
a book of about, I don't know, 350 designs that I've done that were just literally mirrored spikes and arcs and things.
You have to show. I can't wait.
Awesome.
Yeah. I did them in
Yeah.
high school, and then I'm like, I'm going to do something amazing with these one day.
I'd like to see those.
That would be so cool. Yeah, so please do. So for me, Trampled Underhoof is my encounter point for Mastodon was less than a year after straight up nearly dying. Like I was on a firing range in the army. I talked about this with Danny. No high-vis vest, no bulletproof vest, no radio. But yeah, it was shortly after segued my way out of the army. On that, what is like, I just couldn't. I mean, you can't really function after that. Like a lot of PTSD, a lot of trust issues and stuff. So medical discharge, and Mars Volta and Mastodon, these kind of like angels descended to like comfort me musically, you know, and then also Meshuggah later on. So these three M, like triple M, these three M bands kind of. But Mastodon, I resonated with most of all, and I felt trampled underhoof, damn straight, fucking did, and that idea of being reborn after that and birth, you know, and that was the impetus behind the patterns and stuff was, first of all, I saw these people who I resonated with, and I saw them as like simultaneously brothers and dads. That's how I always seen Mastodon, like brother figures, but also dad figures. And I just was super isolated. And Dadstodon. That's right. Yeah. Troy Stodon, Bill Stodon, Brent Stodon, and Branstodon. Okay. Oh yeah, and so I'm just having a lot of fun, and just feel like it's cool to hang out with cool Mastodon people, and feel like I've just made like actual, real deal, solid friends with you guys. So feeling the love. Anyway,
I don't
back to
really
my.
have any other Mastodon buddies. I've got friends who are like,
Oh yeah.
they know who they are, and they're all right. But I don't really have many people to shoot the shit with over about Mastodon, because most people are just like, I like the riffs.
Yeah.
They don't really delve much further.
They don't understand. They don't understand our problem. No, I'm kidding.
They don't get it.
They don't get it. Shut up, Dad.
Even when Hushed and Grim came out, me and Amy were listening to it in the car, and I was like, this reminds me of like the Remission stuff where it's like this, and she's just like.
So I had an embarrassing moment at work. For a little while, the school system had sent out calendars with like pictures of children on it. Every month there was a different child's picture, and I'm like, this is kind of weird. These, children in my town that are smiling at me. So I would print off pictures of the Mastodon guys and like strategically place them on these kids' faces, and it was, just my own little moment of joy. So some strange operator comes in to where I am, and I don't really know him. I've seen him a few times, and he goes, "Who is that?" And I turn around and look, and I'm like, "Oh, well, that's Troy, and he's from my favorite band, and it's a big thing." And it took me about a minute to realize he was asking me who my new boss was that had just walked by. So here I am blabbing on about Mastodon, and he's just like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. Okay, so Troy, if you're listening to this, and to the old guys, I guess, thank you for contributing to Heather's amusing moments of embarrassment. But once again, it's this idea that it's like, well, they did it to us, and we're, I guess, doing it to ourselves, because something that Bill actually would probably be able to speak to is, because he's such a Star Wars guy, there's a sense that he has, and the rest of the guys as well, have created I say like a mythos or whatever. Like it just, again, I was saying this super early in the show, Danny, about how Mastodon, maybe not through any conscious effort, but just because of how much of themselves they pour into it, it's truly like not just a gig for them. It's like they really do like invest in like you saw that Hush and Grim like list of artists that they got for all of their tour posters, and all of those contribute to like this, I call it the Mastoverse or whatever. Like they're just creating this amazing sense of imagery and stuff that you can read meaning into, and so reinterpretable. And so we shouldn't. I mean, this is like almost like a Mastodon Fans Anonymous or whatever. But like it's good to kind of make sure, and to anyone listening as well. It's like if you're feeling like, oh well, I just love this band a lot though, but like a Heathers of the world, like, but a lot. Well, it makes sense because it has a lot of those elements that many other communities who have like whatever cons or whatever, or those huge like Star Wars or whatever, they create those communities because there's so much to dive into. And so
there's a mythology there, isn't there?
Yeah, like don't feel bad. Like makes perfect sense. Like they've put a bunch of effort into it and really lends itself to that close analysis. And then just, you know, I mean, Danny, Amanda was telling us before, like right behind her, you can see like she's got her like hunter mask as well. And you know how they released like so exactly. It's so amazing. And I'm hoping maybe she'll take us like to close out the show, like to transition.
I'll show you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's sick.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the one that was available when the Hunter first came out, or?
It was a promo item. So I have so many random stories, but someone actually noticed that at local shows here in Cincinnati, they were like, "You're always wearing a Mastodon shirt." And she was like, "My boyfriend has a big stupid mask that's just taking face." And I was like, "Oh my God." She's like, "Do you want it?" She's like, "I've been hoping that I would see you." So she was just driving around in her car with the hunter mask until she saw me at a show. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take it." It's numbered and everything. So, yeah.
Oh, that's
great.
awesome.
So
slight tangent. I don't know if you guys are into Behemoth, but
love them.
You've probably seen these. They're like
a
statue.
Love it.
I'm friends with a guy who's friends with Behemoth, and these were numbered and signed, and he gave me this for my birthday last year, and it's actually the very first one. I don't know if
dude, shut up. Well, we've got a better thing that we're doing. Yeah,
it's
Danny.
like number one. So similar to your story, that's
awesome.
Like, you're a big fan. Take this. I'm like, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Two things there. First of all, Danny, we do have a Behemoth thing. I want to get Dennis Farkas, who you guys know about the Satanist, the painting that he did for Nurgle when he had leukemia.
Yeah, with his blood or something.
He used some of his blood in the paint and stuff. So want to get that full. He's very, again, he's like a reclusive painter dude, but I could see him wanting to jump on. But anyway, this was all leading in terms of like this level of passion and stuff and how it actually feels justified. That's the thing. It doesn't feel disproportionate. It doesn't feel niche. Once again, that universality that Mastodon taps into, like Star Wars-esque or whatever. I want to, like, this wasn't planned, but everything sort of just kind of condensed. And see, even the dog approves, which is great.
Yes.
Guys,
I'm excited.
A year hence, we have to do MastoCon. Okay? Mastodon convention.
Let's do it.
There is enough novelty masks that they've released for records, fan-made stuff like Heather makes, enough collective merch. I want to see a bunch of Mastodon stuff out there, like all this like limited merch stuff. Would so love to. I think Danny's about to go and get some stuff. Oh yeah, he is. Booyah! That's right.
I have all of the Mastodons that were ever made, so I can supply. I have all the leggings. I've always thought that it would be cool to have like a Mastodon museum and have like guitars and stuff.
Oh, it's well in the planning for me.
I don't know if you're listening, guys.
No, it's happening.
Give me your guitar.
I called them museum metal for a while because they evoked Heather. I think maybe you're gonna that sense of like beautiful illustrations and like elegant lyrics. Like it evokes something you could come across, like those beautiful things they do in museums. Okay, Danny, what have you got for us?
Sorry to have jumped out of my seat, but a couple of years ago when Emperor of Sand first came
out, the story. Let's go.
Yeah. So my girlfriend crocheted this Emperor of Sand guy. It's in there.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Excellent.
And I put it on my Instagram page, and Bron reached out and was like, "That's awesome! I want one." And I jokingly said, because I was going to the show that night, I jokingly said, "Oh, she said she'd make you one if you gave us backstage passes." And he was like, "Done deal." And like messaged me,
so cool.
Got in touch. So Amy made him one, slightly smaller and a bit less detailed because she had to like fucking knock it up in no time. and they were playing in Wolverhampton. And at the end of the show, Bron came up to the mic and he was like, "I'm here to meet somebody about some wool in Wolverhampton." And that little doll got us backstage VIP passes, and we sat and drank with them for like several hours talking about Star Wars, Crack the Sky, sprinkling drugs on Crack the Sky to make it sound all woo.
Amazing.
So,
That's
fucking
so cool.
awesome.
I
And then
dig
the
it.
next time I met Bron, he remembered who I was and asked where Amy was, and he was like, "Yeah, still got the little Emperor sound." And Troy called it the cutest little cancer he'd ever seen.
Wow. Well, it's important to be able to laugh, I guess. What were you saying, sorry, Amanda?
I just said that's just such a cool story. He's so cool. A good egg. That's awesome.
It's
Definitely
actually the story that connected me and Albert in the first place as well. It's
That's right.
our launch pad. So not only did Bron's act of kindness, resonate really well with me, it's resonated with somebody else, and now we're having this conversation, which wouldn't have happened without that. So
there you go.
It's
And
awesome.
you hadn't, I know, and you hadn't actually shown the little guy on the show yet. For completion's sake, and because I am ex-OCD, it's now become just this benign sense of like, we have to do this. So let's finish. So Trilobite. Once again, I did mention that idea of like the primordial band, like emerging, And by the way, trilobites exist and they're real, and they're like, I think there's even like a contemporary like ancestor, like descendant of them, and which messed with me. Once again, also I did not realize this, guys. Trilobites are like, they're also called horseshoe crabs or something, which like relates to the horse.
Yeah, of course.
Of the album.
I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow. Getting a biology lesson on this podcast too.
There you go. We're all just going to become like zoologists, like across, like familiar across all of these different, I just love how they had. No, go for it, Amanda.
Oh no, I was gonna say that's another one. I know I've said that a couple of times, but I know that they're they do music first and then they write lyrics and then the song title. That's another one where I'm like, I don't know why they called it Trilobite. I can't figure it out, so I'm just here for the ride.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it's a cool song. It's another good it's almost like a breather before you get punched.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like how I feel. It's another well placed song.
Yeah, this one is one of those ones where I can highlight an enigmatic, cryptic quality, not really necessarily have too much to connect to it, but I love the very Kubrickian, like, shades of 16, remember? Like, I mean, one day Troy will be on the show and just be like, oh yeah, that was my room number,
Yeah. We thought it sounded cool. I don't know.
Yeah. Wind Beneath. Well, I do love Wind Beneath Us, which is like feeling this gathering sense of support that they're getting early on. I can't even imagine, like most bands nowadays, it's like there's so many things they can do, especially online. It's like the limit is your own proactivity. But back in 2002, it's really trial by fire. Like you had to really like basically bash your head against the tour circuit, van going on fumes, like just eating peanuts, like really push it. So I love that idea of comforting. Like, that's so great. It's almost like coming across your kid's diary and being like, I got bullied today, but I'm going to keep trying, like, it's just great. Okay. So
Awesome.
Guys, what is that? Can you hear it? Can you hear it? It's Mother Puncher.
I could hear it.
Oh, fuck. Mother Puncher, that word, it physically has an impact on me. It does.
Have you had the beer?
No, I haven't. Have you had? You've obviously had it, I'm sure,
I have that's one, I think I still have an empty over here, actually, and my Mastodon shrine, I guess. One of them, anyway. It's good.
Yeah, it's
I drank it
really
years
good.
ago.
I got it. I got a bottle of it bought for Christmas one year, and then the shop in Birmingham no longer stocked it. And then me and Amy went to Amsterdam a few years ago, when we went to this shop that was just wall-to-wall beer, and they had shitloads of them. So I can honestly say that had an effect on me too,
Yeah.
for better or worse.
That is, it's such a brutal song, and again, I love it's on their current tour, and like hearing it live is just like, oh my god, it's just so cool. That chugging guitar, and random, but now Bill and Brent do this little choreographed kick, and I shouldn't say it's choreographed. I have no clue, but they do it, awesome. And like it's just the coolest thing. That has nothing to do with like the song, but I'm just like, oh, they kicked. That's so cool.
It's I think it's a subtle nod to their love for ZZ Top, who would do that too. Just like the coordinated kind of movements.
Could be.
Really
could be.
That. Interestingly, for this, then we have Elephant Man that closes it out. But for Mother Puncher, it's so powerful. But right there are so many lyrics that just change, stand, and grow, which is just literally what they're going through as a band in that moment. Then moments of self-doubt, these things you'll never be, right? Taste your fate, all that you'll ever be, So that juxtaposition we talked about like flickering, like a flickering flame almost, between confidence and doubt, all melded together, and then that resolution, like no matter what, even if it fails, love unconditional. Like even if it doesn't come together, which we're here 20 years later, it obviously did come together. But I love that they had that surrender.
It's almost like it's a dig at your own mom, isn't it? Like you fucking brought me here, and I've now got to accept my fate. And
oh yeah, that's probably.
I still love you, mom.
Legitimately, no. I think that might be some kind of like psychological complex. Is like the opposite of Oedipal, like hatred of the mother for like, well, now because of you I'm born and I have to deal with life, have
to fucking work.
I have to do all these things.
Yeah, I have to work. It's awful.
And then I hate the ones who bring you down. It's like, obviously, which is the classy way of saying fuck the haters, So, and then Elephant Man. Who has seen David Lynch's film? Do we know that? That one, Joseph Merrick. Yeah.
Very
fantastic.
Good.
Mel Brooks. You know what? Heinous, but it's a safe space. I still haven't seen it. Can you believe that?
Wow.
I know. That's it. Everyone jumps off So I think I have to. I've said it officially because I'm a big Young Frankenstein guy. It's huge for me, Mel Brooks, and I know that Bran is also a big Young Frankenstein guy with his Marty. I have my Marty Feldman stuff, long sleeve there as well. But so Mel Brooks, I need to check this thing out. He produced it. David Lynch directed it. It's like, why the fuck haven't I seen this?
And John Hurt's acting, of course,
exactly.
Is fucking fantastic.
Sure. So, folks, I think look at that, an actual podcast-shaped tribute to this amazing fucking album. There you go. I dig it.
So cool.
Well, folks, I want to just do a quick check about like what everyone else had ahead in their day, how much time we have with everyone. Heather, Amanda, Danny, a couple more minutes? What do you reckon?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, totally good. This was my plan. It's Saturday night here. This is my plan, so I'm good.
Excellent.
What time is it for you guys in the States?
About 7 o'clock at night for me.
Yeah.
7? Okay, you guys are both
10 to 8, so we are in different time zones, but we're only an hour apart.
Okay, cool.
It's 10 to 1 in the morning here.
This guy, and once again, I had no expectation, but Danny pulled through. I really appreciate it. It's so cool. Also, I guess for the listeners who might be amused by this sort of thing, we've had an incarnation of getting all together and having a podcast maybe for like over a year. Maybe, I feel like saying, like, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
So, but what I do like as that excuse for the podcast, that I've always really enjoyed whenever I hear it's like, well, after the podcast we stayed in touch, and after the podcast this and that. So I think that that'll be really cool. I really am serious about MasterCon. Like, why the fuck not? I just hate that I'm in Australia. Why am I here? Can you adopt me?
Talked about, it's similar but not, like this happened years ago where there was talk about a Mastodon Mayhem only concert.
I remember that.
Yeah, and it was basically like everyone was jived about it, but like not many people were wanting to like do the work. And it was, but I think that would be such a cool thing to revisit, but like logistically it would be like, I'm like in my day job, like I was a supervisor. So like I always think about things like logically. I'm like, we gotta get the venue, and what would the band do it for? And then we have to think of this and this cost, and like, whatever. I don't know. But it would just be really cool if they did like a
I'm announcing it. This is the MasterCon board of directors right now, all four of us. Amanda, you're all over logistics. I'll do some kind of overall kind of planning, scheduling, because I also have that admin brain. Heather, you'll just cover all sorts of like, what is it like? Well, we'll have this booth here, we'll have that booth there.
Oh yeah. So I work in a lab, and I'm very much aware of like coordinating and making sure this happens. And I do all of the ordering for everything. So make sure everyone gets all their stuff.
Yeah, and then we have Danny, who's like all across like gigs and like getting ready and stuff like that. So I think pretty solid, guys.
Stuff. I'm the head of my department at work. So similar.
Actually, when I'm sorry, Danny, were you still talking?
No, it's okay.
Go for it, Heather.
Okay. So in high school, we actually did a festival at my dad's farm. He's got like 101 acres, and we did this silly little thing called, it wasn't Woodstock, it was Cornstalk, because we had cornfields. And we actually had a lot of like local bands come out and play for the day. We had a full stage set up, so
that's cool.
And an Elvis impersonation. So quite a little experience.
That's amazing. Cool. Okay, well, that has laid, I'm sorry, but that has legitimately laid the foundations. Speaking as someone who has had that actual moment of like, well, I've made the podcast cover, I have to do the podcast now, that's happened in other contexts. But I am not kidding. As I'm putting this edit together, I will be doing a MasterCon logo, and I will say like, and it has to be in Georgia, because I need an excuse to Georgia. I need an excuse to go there because I love that space. Like everywhere, like whenever I think about like places I'd like to visit in the US, I have to hit up Seattle for Alice in Chains, obviously. But I've always felt
Soundgarden, come on.
For sure. And I've also had this, MasterCon begins next year in Atlanta, but then it also goes to London, and we're going to do this thing touring. So like I'm not kidding. Like I know about people who like, they put together like schedules and stuff like that, and it just becomes a thing. And I could easily see, I don't know, again, I could do only so much from here, but like venue and stuff or whatever, it would just be so fucking rad to just have like an official first annual MasterCon. Why the fuck not? And I think with some of the folks, Amanda, with yourself in the Mastodon Mayhem, I think a lot of people would be like, yo, I would do that for free, like to help make that happen.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a very like, I know we were talking about like the sense of community and stuff earlier, but yeah, people there I think are just like really, really giving with like, we do contests and stuff, and we give things away and everything, and people are just like so freaking generous and everything. So I think that we could make it happen. Heather even won free tickets for a contest, and that we Darren, Troy's brother, took care of getting tickets and stuff, and Bill like sends us stuff to give away and stuff too. So all of that to say is
so cool.
That's great. He's like, he's really wonderful. Like I still like one time, I'm rambling, so you can tell me to stop anytime. But like, it's part of my Mastodon story. But I remember when Bill was first getting the yard sale up and running, and he was just like, it was a lot more. It didn't have a website. It was like, DM me if you want this item. And I remember I didn't know who it was at the time, but it was just like a cheap old poster. And I was like, I'd like to give this away in my group, Mastodon Mayhem. And person behind the account was like, oh, it's from Mastodon Mayhem. I'll throw in some extra junk to give away. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I get this like roll. I'll have to find like what it was. It was literally like 6 signed posters and literally like a baggie full of pics, like Brent and Bill pics. And I'm just like, oh my God, like he just sent me this stuff to like give away. And that was just like the start of it. Like,
So
yeah.
nice.
So I've started to buy stuff now, but just to like support them, you know, during COVID and everything. But, you know, now we're back to, you know, if you need something like, you know, well, you know, if it's for the group or whatever, you know, talk it through. Anyway, but all that's to everyone and the band. They're all just really generous with their, you know, what they do in their time.
Amazing. Once again, also, because we're wrapping things up, the levels of like, I felt already this pre-existing kinship with you guys and Instagram, but just meeting you all got like in the digital realm or whatever, just like syncing vibes, IRL, real time. I gotta say, and this might be sappy, but I just have like so much appreciation for each of you for being who you are, doing what you do. Heather, Amanda,
Likewise.
Danny, the love is real. And I hope I'm not overstepping, but I would love to have you all back for other you know, shows as well. Amanda, you've inspired me. I just read because they're always within reach. Feel free to, on Mastodon's, you know, the Mayhem, I got an extra shirt for this one.
Oh, cool.
Okay. And I've been looking for a home for this one.
Ooh.
So, and officially, it is the that's right, for the for Crack the Sky. So you can start telling people about that.
Awesome.
In terms of,
oh, that's
so you
cool.
can include that in your sort of giveaway inventory. So, and it's just a
do another one. So that's awesome.
Male, small, and vinyl cover there, because that's seriously what I want to really start maybe connecting a bit more. I know I'm a bit of a satellite thing, like the Mastodon podcast, because I never get around to that Facebook thing. But I think you guys, especially with how wholesome it sounds, I think I might get drawn back in. It sounds like such a lovely... Okay. All right. Here I come.
We know it sucks, but
There's been a few times I've thought about leaving Facebook, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't leave Mayhem. There's no way I could do without it.
Okay. All right. Danny, I think that's our cue. We have to join. I mean, are you already there?
I used to be, but I deleted my Facebook. But I do follow you on Instagram if it's the same. Is it the same one?
Yeah,
Mastodon
Johnny
Mayhem
Johnny in New Zealand runs he's the man behind the Instagram page, but it kind of reshares some content and also just like shares stuff off Instagram. So it's a branch of the brand, I guess, because I feel like it is a brand at this point.
Yeah. However, just to also people who are going to, just like me, literally right after this, just like, okay, here I am. Would you say, Amanda, that the heart, like the home of that group it's the Facebook group, probably, right? I guess that's...
the Facebook group, because that's where people can interact and you know, stuff like that, and you know, talk. So yes, the heart is definitely in the Facebook group. That's where it started. So yeah. And
like, we're not like sponsored or anything. I don't really vibe too much with like many of Facebook's decisions, but again, as like Heather mentioned, it's like, just if it's about just connecting, then, because don't give them any data to farm, just open like even no profile image or whatever, just join and just hang out. And that, I just love that, like the passion there is so real. It's like, no, I can't leave that platform. Nah, gotta stay, gotta have that Mastodon Mayhem, good energy.
I know, it is so good. And I think, like, I was talking to Bill after one of their last shows. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking an awful lot, but he like had mentioned, just like, because again, he's a good guy, and he was just like, he's like, I just want to thank you for like what you do for us, because it's just like sharing like the merch store links and stuff, and just making sure like we have a really strict, like, do not share links or links to leaks, do not post bootlegs, like we steer them toward official channels and stuff like that. And oh my God, where was I going? Oh, but I like, it was just, I feel like I've met him a lot, but like, I still am like, oh my gosh, like, you know, he's really cool. And like, you know, he appreciates us and everything. But like I had mentioned, like, it's not a lot of work, but like we fostered this community in a certain way around them, because we respect them so much as artists and as humans.
Human beings,
so it's like, Yeah, y'all might feel, like really grateful that you have this community, but it's like nothing because we're just so grateful for the space, for their music, for their art, and a place to talk about. So,
see what I mean? And also like life's short, man. You need to just hang out with kindred, lovely people who bring out like positive emotions, and that's what you just expressed and embodied right there. I also realized
I met the guy who. I met the guy who gave me that Nargal statue on the Mastodon Mayhem page about.
Was it Richard? Richard?
Yes.
I know Richard. See, we all know each other.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, Richard Lucifer.
Funny. I was thinking that. I'm like, I wonder if that's Richard. I was thinking that, but yeah, that's so funny that I was going to say it had to have been him.
We actually met up in person last year. It was on my birthday, actually. It was about a year ago, actually. So it was nice to finally meet him in person.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's so wholesome. Also, first of all, I'm pretty sure maybe does Mastodon Mayhem like they have their own podcast or like their own Mastodon Mayhem? Okay, cool. Well, then I'm here, and hello, and I will head over to the page and be like, hey, anyone from Mastodon Mayhem who wants to just riff and just share their Mastodon story, all this kind of stuff. That would be lovely. And I also realized there's 4 of us, like Mastodon. Heather's definitely either, if we're going to do this, the quiet ones, so Troy or Bill, maybe. I think, Amanda, you'd have to be Bran, because you're just like very like, just like riffing, and then vocal and
Second
stuff.
time I've been told that in my life, which is really funny that this has come up before.
Oh, yeah? I think so. For sure. There you go. It's an energy thing.
Yeah.
I think Danny has to be Brent by default, because he's the muso dude. And I'll do the Bill thing, I guess, because that Star Wars stuff, and I'm sure he's quite. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm actually an introvert. But Bill also, once you get him going, like he likes to tell some stories, and that's definitely why I met that. He corrected my pronunciation on I said Sasquatch, and he's like, no, it's Sasquatch, as in like Cyclops, Sasquatch. No, Sasquatch.
I think I did in my head wrong for a long time until like I have one of the T-shirts of the Sasquatch. So when I saw it, I'm like, well, it's Sasquatch. It's Sasquatch. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. So, hey, I think we're in a pretty good space for like going on for the rest of our weeks, and what an amazing time speaking with you. I'll get to editing this one straight away, and I'm gonna have quite a fun time re-listening to a lot of you guys, and like really wanting to like tightly edit, like make all of your stories like really come to life in the edit. I got some recent feedback where it's like, Albert, love you, man, but you tend to waffle a bit. I'm like, all right, I'll do a bit more editing, I guess.
Well, that's what a podcast is. It's people talking.
This is riffing.
I know. That's what I was thinking. Like all the podcasts I enjoy are just people riffing about stuff I like. So whatever.
Yeah. Well, then maybe to that person, you know what I say? Take
Fuck
that.
you.
Fuck you. No, it's all right. It was valid. I think it was because he was like, hey, for certain things, like, hey, maybe when you're like trying to find a specific part, and you just feel free to like just tighten that. I'm like, okay, fair enough. But for the rest, it'll just be this organic, just a vibey thing. But speaking of good vibes, giant hugs. Have an amazing rest of the day, everybody. little pat for the pooch, wherever the pooch went to. And
outside.
For sure. Great to meet you all, and I'll edit it up and send you guys the links. Okay, we'll do it again very soon.
Yeah, we'll look forward to it.
See you guys. Bye.
Awesome.
Really nice to see you guys.
See ya.
Great to meet you.
Bye bye.